Okay, here we go. All right. All right. A little problem here getting online initially, but here I am finally. I haven't done any live streaming in a while. So, but this is the beginning of a new series let's see, hold on one second. Yeah, everything's cool. Little problem getting online here. Everything is cool. Yeah. Okay. As I said, this is the beginning of a new series of Sunday streams, Sunday live streams. I'm going to come on every Sunday afternoon and talk about whatever I feel like talking about, and also what's coming up this week on the Jazz Video Guy channel. So this week, I'm going to talk about the Michael Brecker podcast. There's a bunch of episodes, I guess 25, somewhere 28 episodes so far, and three new videos coming up this week. I'll talk about that first. On Wednesday, I've got a wonderful video from the Clifford Jordan Big Band live in Japan. Some of you may know Clifford Jordan, a great tenor saxophonist who's no longer with us. Played with Max Roach and Charles Mingus. He was in that band Mingus toured Europe with Eric Dolphy. If you look on YouTube, you can find some of their stuff. And in his later years, he had an excellent big band, really fascinating cross-section of New York musicians in the band. And I found some footage of them in Tokyo that I'm going to be screening this week and next week as well. I highly recommend that you check it out. On Thursday, I'm posting a video, one of my favorite standards, You Don't Know What Love Is, featuring the Jim Riddle trio. Jim Riddle, an excellent pianist, and special guest Michael Pattison. Michael is a tenor saxophone player, and he is also the guest on the Michael Brecker podcast on Friday. When I started doing the podcasts, Michael Pattison reached out to me. He's also from Philadelphia, and Michael Brecker and Michael Pattison became friends when they were teenagers. Mr. Pattison is 3 years older than Michael, and they were friends, good friends, up until the time Michael left us in 2007. And he has some insights into Michael, the musician and the person. As some of you may already know, Michael Brecker was a remarkable person and remarkable musician as well. So there are going to be 4 episodes of the podcast with Michael Pattison. One premiered this past Friday, which featured all the podcasts have someone talking about Michael Brecker, and then some music where Michael plays. And this past Friday, I found some video. Actually, it was Louis Garretts, who runs the Michael Brecker group on Facebook, shot me some video of Michael playing Confirmation. We usually don't hear Michael Brecker doing bebop. Very interesting to listen to that. And this coming Friday's episode features an all-star group led by the pianist, author, broadcaster Ben Sidran. The song is the standard "Someday My Prince Will Come." Of course, Miles made that a jazz standard, and people have been playing it since then in the early 60s. And on this Friday, we get to hear Michael work out on it. Haba. Not only am I having trouble with the live stream, I'm having trouble speaking English. No problem. I'll get there. And really, you should check that out. I love hearing Michael play on certain standards. I started the podcast, I guess, 3 or 4 months ago. My friend Bill Milkowski is a wonderful writer, and you may know him from the great book he did about the biography of Jaco Pastorius. His latest book is Ode to a Tenor Titan. I may have that title wrong. Really comprehensive book about Michael Brecker that I learned a lot from, things I never knew about Michael. And after I found out about the book, I thought it would be fun to interview Bill. And the interview was full of great content. So I said, let me turn it into a podcast. So it became a podcast series. And have a lot of episodes with Bill and other people. Michael Pattison the next 3 weeks. I did recently Bob Mintzer. And as I said, an interview about Michael and then some of Michael's music. And thankfully, we have a lot of video of Michael Brecker from European jazz festivals and Japan, and of Michael leading his own groups with the Brecker brothers. And so this podcast series has been a great joy to do for several reasons. One, because like many people who listen to this music, we love Michael Brecker. There's something very special about Michael Brecker's playing. Michael and I are the same age, both born in 1949. And for my generation, I think Michael is the greatest musician and the greatest tenor player, and also the most remarkable human being. So these podcasts tell that story. I knew Michael. I had some wonderful experiences with him, interviewing him, hanging out with him. I produced the first live webcasts from Birdland in 1999 with the Saxophone Summit, which was Dave Liebman, Joe Lovano, and Michael Brecker. And you can find those on my channel. They're really remarkable, fun. Sometimes when tenor players, musicians, especially tenor players, get together, it's a contest. It's a cutting contest. But in this case, it was a learning experience. They inspired each other and they learned from each other. And I'm so glad that that content exists and I was able to post it on my channel. And I hung out with Michael a couple of times after that. Right in, I think it was September of 2001 or October of 2001. I've been living in Tucson. Actually, I moved here in July 2001. And in September, October, Herbie Hancock's New Directions in Music group with Michael and Roy Hargrove, John Patitucci was on bass, and Brian Blade was on drums. Excuse me. The rhythm section changed a bit. They toured for about a year and a half. But Michael came out here. And I went to see him. Actually, I showed up at the facility several hours before and we hung out. So I'm very lucky to have spent some quality time with Michael Brecker. I remember in 96, when I was running the first major jazz website, Jazz Central Station, I went to his house for an afternoon in Hastings on the Hudson, downstairs to his studio. A couple of interviews I did with him are also on my page here. And just incredible musician and wonderful person, great sense of humor, very smart, and someone who really cared about people, related, even though he was perhaps, I think, one of the greatest jazz musicians of the era. He was very humble. And as Michael Pattison talks about and others talks about, Michael was never satisfied with his playing, no matter how great it was. Similar to Sonny Rollins, another friend of mine that I've done a lot of work with, and probably most of the great musicians. I'm sure Coltrane felt the same way. Those three musicians, They worked very, very hard. They had a gift, but they worked at it all their lives. Michael was practicing all the time. Sonny Rollins, I mean, I used to go with him to gigs. He would get to the gig 4 hours before the concert and go in the back and just practiced. Same thing with Coltrane. There's a great Jimmy Heath story on my channel here about they were in a hotel room in San Francisco once together, and Train was practicing, and someone called to complain about the noise, and continued to practice with his fingers, with the horn out of his mouth. You may have heard that story that Jimmy Cobb related about that final tour, that incredible tour the Miles Davis Quintet did in 1960 in Europe, which no video of that tour, but some incredible recordings that they did. They're up here on YouTube. And as we know, Coltrane played some long solos, and it bugged Miles a little bit during that tour. So Miles mentioned to Coltrane, could you play a little bit shorter? And Train said, I can't. I'm just trying to get everything in. What should I do? Miles said, take the horn out your mouth. But yeah, so Michael Brecker was heavily influenced by John Coltrane. He saw John Coltrane at that infamous Temple University concert in 1966 that was released this year on by Impulse Records. A fascinating look and listen into late Coltrane. John Coltrane was a man of in constant transformation musically. I have a friend who, I think it was 64, 65, went to see him in Chicago, and people in the audience were requesting certain things that he had recorded. Train said, we're not playing that anymore. I'm doing something else. All three musicians, Coltrane, Rollins, Brecker, constantly searching, looking for something, trying to play what they hear, not afraid to work as hard as they could to find it. And certainly their music shows that. So I will continue to do the Michael Brecker podcast for a while. Axel retracted his message. By the way, would love to have you chat with me here if you're on. You have any questions, any comments? This is the time to talk to the jazz video guy in person. Sunday afternoons is kind of a quiet time for me, so I'm going to do these live streams on Sunday afternoon. But in 6 weeks, I am moving. I am leaving the United States of America to go to a wonderful place called Guanajuato, Mexico. Never in my life I thought I would move to Mexico, but my girlfriend, who's an artist, told me about this place that she went to in Mexico 9 times that she thought I would love. And during the pandemic, we thought maybe we should relocate. Tucson's becoming a little tired, a little too hot here. I don't like the politics in Arizona. I wanted, new chapter. I've been here 20 years. I went down there. Sherry and I went down there in January. It was just a fantastic place. Hello, Argentina. Buenos dias, Argentina. Buenos tardes, Argentina. Buenas noches. I'm not sure. But hello from Tucson, Arizona to Argentina. I want to visit Argentina. When I move to Mexico, I'm going to use that as my base for trips around Latin America. I'm lucky in my lifetime to have been all around the world. I've been in Asia a lot, in Europe, but I've just recently started to get into Central America and Latin America. And one of my favorite tenor players, Gato Barbieri from Argentina. So look forward to checking out the jazz scene in Argentina. I'm sure there's some really good music there. Jazz is a universal form, Peru. Oh, muchas gracias, Francisco. Yes, I am trying to improve my Spanish. I'm going to move to Mexico. I got to speak fluent Spanish. It's not going to happen overnight. But Athens, Greece. Hello. Minneapolis. Wow. As I said, jazz is a universal form. I have people on my channel from 167 different countries. Jazz is not the most popular music in the world, but those who love it, those of us who love it, we really dig it. It's part of our lives. Many people like to play it. I was a shitty trumpet player. I never practiced, a bit undisciplined, but I've been a jazz fan since I was 9 years old. I mean, well, this was like in the early 60s. Israel. Oh, yes. Where in Israel, Roz? It's another place I hope to visit. Maybe when things calm down a little bit in the Middle East. I hope that happens. Very good friend of mine, Harvey Brooks, great bassist, who played on Bitches Brew and with in the 60s with the Doors. And he was living in Tucson for a while. He moved to Jerusalem a few years ago. He loves it there. But my train of thought went wild there. My apologies. I'm like all over the place. Just the way my mind works. Oh, Harvey. Ah, yes. Harvey's a wonderful bass player, really cool guy. And you're moving to Michoacan, Michael Smith, Finland. Oh, yes, another place. I've never been to Scandinavia. I want to visit Finland. I want to go to the Pori Jazz Festival. There's a great recording of the Horace Silver Quintet when Michael first joined in the 70s for the Pori Jazz Festival. That was the one I first heard Michael Brecker on the Horace Silver recording, In Search of the 27th Man. I've been a long-time Horace Silver fan. And when that came out and I heard that track, Gregory is Here, who's that tenor player? I mean, Michael was like, I don't know, 25, 26 at that time. He already had that thing going on. And I became an instant Michael Brecker fan after that. You know how that happens? Sometimes you're listening to music and you hear someone or some group that you never heard before. It just jumps out at you. That happened to me in 1967. Yes, I'm old. When I first heard the Charles Lloyd Quartet on Forest Flower. Keith Jarrett's solo on there just blew my mind. It still does. Who is that? And I was really lucky to hear the Charles Lloyd Quartet live a bunch of times after that, while that initial group stayed together, 67, 68, 69, and then they went off in different directions. Keith Jarrett joined Miles Davis. In fact, I saw one of Keith Jarrett's first gigs with Miles Davis on the infamous Miles at Fillmore gig, which was recorded. It's a 2 CD set on Columbia. I'll never forget that night, because what was happening in the late 60s there with Miles and In a Silent Way and Bitches Brew, and all the fusion groups started, Chick and Return to Forever and Mahavishnu Orchestra. Something really exciting was going on. So when I went to see I saw Miles at the Fillmore in the band with Wayne and Chick and Dave Hollins and Tony. And then this other gig, we really didn't know who was going to show up that night. I'll never forget it. They came out. Keith Jarrett was on one side of the stage on a Farfisa electric organ. Chick Corea was on the other side of the stage with a Fender Rhodes electric piano. By that time, Wayne had left. Steve Grossman, who was very young at the time, was playing with Miles. Airto, Dave Holland, and Jack DeJohnette. And that was an interesting concert because it was a double bill. Miles opened, although he should have gone on second, but he preferred when he was in a concert with another group, he preferred to play first with Laura Nero. She's a wonderful singer-songwriter of that era. I'd never seen her. I loved her music, but Miles came on, totally blew me away. I left after that. I mean, there was nothing left to hear. And then the band changed. They did a couple gigs with that 2 keyboard thing, the Isle of Wight, and I believe Tangoid. You can find those also on YouTube. Then the band transformed into Keith Jarrett, who played electric piano, organ with Miles. He never did any electric music after that. Gary became very good friends with, who was on alto. A dramatic change in the music with Michael Henderson on bass. Michael Henderson, a Motown bassist who played with Stevie Wonder. And well, Jack was on drums and Airto. And that was the initial group. I saw them in person one night. I guess it was 70 or 71 at the Cafe A Go-Go in New York. Richard Pryor was the opening act. I'll tell you here, I'm not ashamed to mention it, I took some LSD before I went to the gig. Unbelievable, incredible to hear that music. And that night, after Chick left Miles, he played in a very odd group called Circle with Anthony Braxton. So he walked up to the Vanguard and heard the debut of Chick Corea's new group, Circle. They've recorded, you can check that out, just totally outside. What a night of music. You know, it's one of those nights, sometimes in this life you hear music live and you just never, and that was certainly just an incredible music. There was a moving video of Brecker looking back on his year studying alongside another Titan, David S. Ware. Yes, I've heard of that video. I don't know it. There's a lot of Michael Brecker videos on YouTube. I'm thinking for the podcast, what I'm going to do is pull down a bunch of those Brecker interview videos and create a couple of episodes of the podcast where Michael just talks. Michael's a very intelligent, well-spoken guy. And there's a number of, interviews with him. There's a couple of master classes. So I'm going to pull down some of that stuff and edit it into a couple of podcasts. And I don't know who else I'm going to interview. I'm definitely going to interview Dave Liebman. They were really tight. And probably my friend Joe Lovano. But Michael played with a lot of people. I've done interviews with Randy. One of the podcasts features Randy talking about his brother. Randy's a friend, wonderful guy as well. Randy's been very supportive of what I'm doing since the beginning. Funny thing, I actually met Randy before I met Michael. Because I got to New York in the early 70s. I went to NYU Film School. And I became very close to a pianist named Walter Bishop Jr., who I first knew about from Charlie Parker records. He was a bebopper. And I met him. He was playing piano at a party. I ended up hanging out with him, becoming friends with him. And he invited me to a recording session called Soul Village. This would be, I guess, in 76, 77, something like that. And Randy was the trumpet player. There was a sax player who passed away in a plane crash. He used to play with Chuck Mangione, Jerry Nywood. I forget the other musicians on the recording. But I met Randy at that session. I had known about Randy through Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And here I was in a recording studio, the first live recording session I ever went to. We ended up going to many of them over the years. And really nice guy. And then, of course, Michael and Randy had 7th Avenue South, which is a really infamous jazz club in Lower Manhattan. I went there a bunch of times. And I saw Michael in person, but I didn't actually meet Michael until the mid-90s. I did an interview with the Brecker brothers that appeared in Jazz Times magazine. And that was the beginning of my friendship with Michael Brecker. So I'm going to jump off here. I don't want this to go on for too long. I know people don't like to watch long streams. People don't like to watch long videos. You know, think about web video. For a number of reasons, most people don't watch an entire video. For my videos, it really doesn't matter who it is, how good the performance is. After the first minute, I lose 50% of the audience. By the end of the video, only 20% of the people stick around. And I've talked to other YouTube creators and other people who do web video, and it's the same thing. I think half the audience leaves because they didn't see something in there that really grabbed them, or they they bookmarked it, they'll come back to the video. Or when people watch web video, they're sometimes doing, several different things at once. Multitasking. And this is a world of diverted attention. I'm going to talk about this maybe next week. I want to do a stream about why isn't jazz more popular? Because the truth is, jazz is more accessible and there's more jazz available on the web than ever before. Just about any recording can be found on YouTube now. Certainly, if you subscribe to a streaming service like Apple Music or Spotify, you can get just about anything. And people, just because they love the music, will post an entire recording. There's a guy on YouTube now called Mr. Mister. Check him out. He is posting a lot of recordings that are only available on LP. They just haven't come out on CD. And he's got 2 or 3 new posts every week, some really great stuff. He put up the other day I forget the exact name of it, like Hank Jones, the best of Hank Jones from the 50s. Just incredible. Hank Jones, one of the real piano masters. So no shortage of music out there. And also no shortage of concerts, certainly on YouTube, and no shortage of live streams. Our friend Spike Wilner, the force behind Smalls, he's got Smalls live streams from Smalls every night. Sometimes 3 or 4. There's a jam session and 2 or 3 other groups, as well as his smaller club down the street on 10th Street in the Village in New York for Mesro. So you can check out live streaming jazz all the time on the web. And for a young musician or people just getting into the music, wow, you even have to buy it. And that in itself is an issue because musicians don't make any money when their music is streamed or put up on YouTube. I'll talk about that another time. Unfortunately, as good as the access to the music is, musicians are not paid fairly. It used to be that the record labels benefited from the exploitation of musicians. Now it's Apple and Google and Spotify, the tech companies, who make a shitload of money. And very, very little of it goes back to musicians. And I really don't I don't do this for the money. It's nice to make some money doing it. I've been doing this since 2006. If I average, let's see, that's how many years now? 16 years I've been doing this. I guess I average about $500 a month, something like that. Sometimes I put in, a lot of hours. I figured it out once. I make about $1.80 an hour. If everybody who watched this channel, paid $1 through Patreon or PayPal or something like that, I'd make a good living doing this. But I don't like to ask for money, and I don't. As much as I enjoy people watching the videos and getting as many viewers as possible, I don't really get into the YouTube algorithm, all the different things you got to do. And, question. No, I did not see Albert Eiler. I did not move to New York until the late 60s, and unfortunately did not get a chance to access Albert Eiler at that time. And also, when I first got into the music, I was more of a bebopper. I was into Bird and Diz and Dexter Gordon and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until the late 60s, and I knew about Coltrane, but he was just a little too far out for me. And then finally, after he passed, unfortunately, in the late 60s, that's when I really got into Coltrane and what was then called the avant-garde. Later, it was the loft jazz, out music, whatever title you want to give to it. There's a lot of it happening in the 60s, 70s, not so much now. So I did not get a chance to hear Albert Eiler live. And I do like his music, and I really dig that documentary film that was done about him. He died under unusual circumstances, but certainly very unique player, and uh, people will still listen to his music. I am, as you are probably aware of as well. There's a change coming in the way that people ingest media, consume media, and Facebook has dubbed it the metaverse. And this is a thing where you're going to sit in your room and you are going to have a virtual experience where you feel like you're there. Maybe you'll have sensors on your body. You'll be able to smell, and everything is going to move over to that medium. And I think I'm a filmmaker. I love movies. Last night I was watching Apocalypse Now redo, Francis Coppola. The Godfather is my favorite movie. I was also watching yesterday the complete opposite of that, 12 Angry Men, which takes place in one room, one of the greatest dramas ever made. But all of those old movies are going to become obsolete because people are going to want this virtual reality experience. Now, for jazz, this is going to be great because you're going to be able to go to the North Sea Jazz Festival or a jazz festival like that in your living room and choose between live music, 12 different things happening at once. That's going to be unbelievable. But I don't think the listening aspect of the music is going to disappear like I feel most movies are. We went from silent films when in the teens and the 20s in the last century, when talkies came out in the late 20s and took over in the 30s. People stopped watching silent films. They wanted to hear people talk, and then all the films were in black and white. And then when color films came out, people went to color. And when this new virtual reality experience happens in cinema, it's going to be a whole other thing. It's going to be a combination of video games and movies, and just going to be unbelievable. 10, 15, maybe 20 years, depending on what happens in the world and technology. I'm not terribly optimistic about the immediate future of life on this planet. I hope it'll get better. That's a way other subject. Cancino 69. I have a question too. Have you ever found a live session of Hank Mobley on video? No, I have not. And I've looked, and many people have talked about it in different Facebook groups. And I honestly don't think it exists. I wish it did. There's a number of people that you just can't find video. Some people you can't. For example, Dolphy. You can find some video of Dolphy with Mingus and a couple of other things. I'm a big Eric Dolphy fan. And another guy who did a lot of stuff on Blue Note Records actually produced a bunch of sessions. Ike Quebec. You can't find any Ike Quebec on video. Thankfully, the other thing, I never saw Mobley live. I moved to New York in the late 60s, and he was not doing that much work then. He was playing more in Philly, so I didn't get it. But big Hank Mobley fan. As a former trumpeter, one of my favorite musicians is Lee Morgan. I got to see Lee Morgan live at Slugs about a year before he passed. Incredible trumpet player. And so, of course, Hank Mobley and Lee Morgan played a lot together. So I have all those recordings. I prize those recordings. Lee Morgan, a fantastic musician. Another guy just jumped out of the speaker. Who is that? Another tragic figure. There's a line of trumpet players that left us tragically much too soon. I'm talking about Fats Navarro, Booker Little, Clifford Brown, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, Woody Shaw, Roy Hargrove. These are some of our greatest trumpet players. They all passed, I think Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw made it to the 40s, but most of these guys died in their 30s. I mean, Lee Morgan was in his 30s. Clifford Brown was 27. It's a tragedy. If only these guys had been around for a while longer. I mean, it would have been Coltrane too. Coltrane died when he was 40. Charlie Parker when he was 35. Can you imagine if these guys had lasted a while longer? I would have loved to hear. I'd love to hear what direction Coltrane would have taken with his music. So, any more questions before I split here? Okay, I guess not. Thanks for joining me. Check out this week's videos. I'm sure you'll dig them. Clifford Jordan Big Band from Japan on Wednesday. Wonderful trio session with Jim Riddle on piano, Dean Johnson on bass, and Michael Pedersen on Friday. And then Michael Pedersen, the guest on the Michael Brecker podcast on Friday, featuring incredible live performance that Michael did with Ben Sidran of Someday My Prince Will Come. Please stay healthy. Please listen to jazz. Tell your friends. What's the meaning of wife? I guess that's your partner in life, right? Your wife, that's my meaning of it. Luxanne Ann, thank you for participating. And I'll be back next Sunday. I'm not sure when. I haven't set a time for these live streams, but it's fun doing them. And I like to do things that are fun. Bye.